Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin Schwarzenberger, and today our episode is on RxJS and all the new greatest stuff with it. Should be pretty cool. Dive into it. Let's get started. Say hi to our panelists first. Joining us today, we got Alyssa Nichol. Alyssa, how's it going?
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
And we got Austin McDaniel with us. Austin, where's the panda head?
It's in the closet.
All right. All right.
Hi, everyone.
We got Bonnie Brennan with us. Bonnie, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm super excited today. I love RxJS.
Bonnie, where's the cowboy hat?
Head, Jay. What?
Bonnie, where's the cowboy hat?
I only did that to keep up with you and Mike and all y'all's crazy hats. I didn't want to feel left out.
All right, we got Mike Brocky with us. Mike, what's going on?
Oh, I'm happy to be back. I've been missing you guys. I've been gone for a couple of weeks trying to get some code written. But
Oh, we didn't notice. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love you, Mike.
Savage.
Totally. Great to have the band back together. So, there's that. Right. All right.
Fun.
We've got three amazing guests with us today. The who's who of RxJS, right? We got Tracy Lee with us. Tracy, how's it going?
Hi, everybody. How are you? Which, by the way, Austin, I feel like you basically shaved off the panda head is really what you did. So, will it ever come back?
Mystery. It's a mystery. And we got Jay Phelps joining us.
Mike Brocky didn't shave off his panda head.
This has been a long time
called
growing,
that
man.
AngularAir haircut, by the way. If you're going to be on the show, you've got to have the haircut.
Oh.
Yeah, you thought I was
you had to
mean,
have
Mike.
hair.
No, you just have to have it cut. So, I don't know. It's the new norm.
It's true, though. Mike Brocky is 90% panda.
90% panda.
He is.
And the 10% is vegetable.
That green thing that you eat.
You steam that. I think you steam that, right? All right. So let's meet our other guests that we have today. We got Jay Phelps with us. Jay, how's it going?
Hello. Good.
Great to have you here.
Thanks for having
And
me.
Ben Lesh jumped on as well. Ben, how's it going?
Great. Great. Happy to be here.
Where's Mishko?
I just left a meeting with him. He's in another meeting.
Very disappointing.
All right. We probably have a little room if you want to pull him in. I don't know. There's probably room.
I don't
We're
know.
not
It looked important. It looked important. I don't want to snag him.
There you go. There you go. All right. Do y'all want to tell us a little bit about yourselves before we get started here for the viewers that might not know you? Maybe we start with Tracy.
Sure. My name's Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter at LadyLeet. I do a lot of stuff in the JavaScript world, Google Developer Expert, love Angular, RxJS core team, playing around with the RxJS docs initiative, excited about that. Also co-founder of a company called ThisDot, in which, Ben, Jay, and myself are all basically involved in on some level or another. So I'm excited to be back on. I haven't seen y'all in a while.
Yeah, it's always great to have you here. And Jay, you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I RxJS nut used to be on the core team. I stepped down. I might see if I can join at some point here, if I can actually stabilize my life right now. With because I just changed jobs. I worked at Netflix for a while, and I just left to join Tracy at ThisDot full time. So that's what I'm doing now. But things are crazy because I also moved from the Bay Area to Tennessee. So
Knoxville, if anybody needs new friends. Jay is
right.
a nice person.
No. So that's my big spiel. I'm also a compiler nut and obsessed with WebAssembly. What else? I am also a GDE.
What is in Knoxville?
My best friend, who is my best friend and his wife, and they're going to have their first child this year. So I wanted to be close to them because I haven't seen them in a while and spend some time with them.
Best excuse ever.
Yeah. Total feels. Love it. Love it. Awesome. All right, and Ben, what's your deal?
What is my deal?
What is your deal?
I joined the Angular core team this last week. Also, I've been operating as the RxJS project lead for a couple years now. So still doing that stuff. And just so people are aware, because especially Igor Minar is very careful
to want everyone to know this. RxJS is still going to do what's right for RxJS and not necessarily always what's right for Angular, because we support a lot of other partners. So I have to make sure I throw that disclaimer out there that I'm involved in both, but the Angular team is actually also very committed to making sure that RxJS stays independent.
So you'll be fighting a lot with Igor, like lots of fist fighting.
Yeah, pretty laid back though. I don't think there'll be much violence involved.
Can you do your best Ken Wheeler though for me? Just
what? No, you want me to flex?
do your Ken Wheeler. He has a really good Ken
You gotta
Wheeler.
do like the hat sideways in one of these.
Yeah, thank you. All
We
right.
don't. We're live, so we don't have the ability to bleep it out.
Right.
Right. So, your crew, everybody has tons of announcements, right? That have been going on. People moving around. We got all this stuff. Don't we have some birthdays too? Didn't this?
Ooh, Tracy.
Birthday last Friday.
Yeah, Tracy.
We got somebody else that had a birthday here.
Who? Jay and Ben are both October.
All right. Don't you sing it like everything that you got going on, Tracy? I feel like we should sing happy birthday for you.
Do it.
All right. That's good.
I love it.
Singing it, but whatever.
Alexa, sing happy birthday.
There we go. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Happy
Happy
birthday to you.
All out of sync.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
Dear Trace.
Tracy.
Happy
happy
birthday.
birthday to you. Yay!
That was tragic.
That was seriously, well, everyone's trying to balance with the other voices that they're hearing on a delay.
Right.
I saved everyone and stayed on mute.
That was
Yeah.
good.
It felt like a Google Hangouts commercial for some reason. I don't know.
Oh my god, it did because it kept flashing to every
Right.
everybody's different faces, and I was
Very
just like,
hey,
"This
this is a commercial. You can use Google Hangouts.
classic."
You know, the best part about my birthday is that Ben actually released RxJS 7 on my birthday, for my birthday, right, Ben?
7.
That,
Version 7.
I like to be ahead of the game.
Ben, was that intentional?
7 version.
Was it for her birthday? Let's hear the truth.
You heard it here first. RxJS 7 is now out.
No.
What kind of breaking changes? All the breaking changes.
All of them.
It's a totally different API.
Oh,
Well,
God.
also, if you ever want to like make Ben really stressed out, you can just call it comma chaining operators instead of dot chaining. Just start calling it comma chaining instead. See how weird he gets?
Oh, okay. See, we really should have a session of just like things to bother Blesh, right? Like.
All right. Well, let's talk about what is here and now with RxJS. However,
All right.
So, first of all, what's the deal with 6? What are we getting? Like, what are the things that we need to know? Kind of sort of thing. I mean, because RxJS is kind of an important thing within Angular, us as Angular developers, right? So, how do we start taking the step forward with leveraging RxJS 6?
Well, what's new in 6? Really, there's some changes in the error handling behavior, which before you would have observables that threw synchronously, and that created some interesting problems in the form of what's called producer interference, where to describe what that means is if you had an observable that you multicast and then gave to the world, and then other libraries that maybe you didn't control did things with that observable. If one of them was to synchronously throw an error and then not handle it, it would rethrow the error at the bottom of the stack and then unwind the stack all the way back to wherever your multicast is happening, which is like a for loop, and break the for loop, and then stop notifying the other third-party libraries that are consuming. So they have no idea why their stuff broke, but it broke because it broke because somebody else, a sibling, ran amok. So the error handling behavior has been changed to rethrow the error on a different call stack, which basically is just throwing in a set timeout, if that makes sense. But that's there. So that's there. However, in RxJS 6, there is a flag on. There's a config that you can pull in from just RxJS and you can flag it to use the deprecated error handling behavior to help people during migration. It's recommended to get off of that as soon as you can. But the biggest thing that people can look forward to, though, in RxJS 6, so that was like more of the breaking change behavior-wise, but the other reason that we're doing a major version is we've moved around how all the imports work. So you basically import anything that's an operator, you import from RxJS/operators, just like you can in 5.5. The difference is there is no RxJS/operators/map, RxJS/operators/filter. Like, you just import it all from RxJS/operators, and everything else you import from just from RxJS. And so there's really 2 import sites that you need to worry about, with the exception of if you're using the WebSocket subject or RxJS's Ajax implementation or something like that. Those are under a couple of different import spaces. But for Angular users, for the most part, there's just the 2 import spots to worry about, as opposed to having this, big long list of imports at the top of your file. So that's a breaking change. And what we've done, and this is a lot of work on the part of Jason Aiden and some folks on the Angular team came up with this to make migration easier, is you can upgrade to RxJS 6, and then there's a package called RxJS-compat, where by simply installing it, you enable the old import paths that you had before. So you can try to import from those import paths, and it'll error that you don't have RxJS-compat installed. As soon as you install it, they just magically start working again, but you're going to be warned that you want to get off of that when possible. And you're going to want to get off of it anyways, because it makes your code so much cleaner. But there's that. Other things, so there's that backwards compatibility library for getting to RxJS 6 right away, but still keeping some of the old imports or stuff and not breaking your stuff right away, so you can kind of slowly migrate. And there's also a forward compatibility library to where if you wanted to use the newer names of things, but you weren't ready to get off of 5.5 yet, you can use that as well. So that's published as a 5.6.0 release, but you would get that by installing RxJS at /compat, just like you do RxJS at beta to get the Rx6 beta or whatever right now. I see that one as probably being less commonly used than just using RxJS 6 and compat, but either way, there's been just tons and tons of work done to get those things migrated in. And the other thing that's nice is now I work at Google, and Google has a giant monorepository with thousands and thousands of files that use RxJS. So all of these changes have been applied against that code base. So we've seen what broke and what didn't, and went through and made adjustments prior to it getting to the public. So it should be a very stable release. Resolved a kind of a nasty bug yesterday with node use. So that's another thing where that's not necessarily Angular related, obviously, but the Angular CLI was running into an issue where if you were using RxJS and then you upgrade RxJS, it would install multiple copies of RxJS amongst all your dependencies if they had a hard dependency on, like, say, RxJS 5.5 or something. And then with multiple copies, you ended up having this weird issue where, like, it just wouldn't notify you from some observables sometimes. And so there was a kind of nasty bug in there, and we were able to resolve that thanks to, honestly, thanks to my move to the Angular team. So it gave me more visibility into what was happening, and I was able to take the time and help them out. So and have the help of some really, really smart people that helped me narrow down the problem. So those are the things you can look forward to in RxJS 6. Not a lot of new features. There's one operator, throw if empty, that's a new operator, but I don't see a lot of. It's more compositional than anything else. I mean, it's just new because there wasn't a way to do that easily before. But that's about it.
Is there any size changes with it?
Oh yeah, substantially. The size changes kind of started with 5.5, And now, especially in the Angular world with some of the build optimization stuff that Angular is doing, and they're making sure that tree shaking is really, really solid. Since RxJS 6 is forcing you more into using these pipeable operators, you're going to see much, much smaller build sizes. And some of the not hop path operators, like, for example, reduce isn't really a hot path operator. Scan is, but reduce is really scan and then take last, right? So it's the same thing. So you can build reduce off of scan and take last. So kind of reducing the size of the footprint of some of the operators, you should see some pretty substantial changes, and that's only going to increase now that we have the public API solid. Over the lifetime of RxJS 6, we can do additional patch releases and minor releases to try to get further decrease the size without changing behavior.
So I see that like RxJS 6 is in beta. Is it ready to use yet? Should I be comfortable that like I can start using this in production and so on?
Google is using it in production right now. So there's a lot of projects within Google that are, some of them very mission critical, and they're using the RxJS 6 beta. So yes, the answer is yes.
So you mentioned the term hot path. I don't know if I've heard of that yet, or people have heard about that yet. What do you mean by that when you say hot path?
Well, hot path is just a piece of your application that gets called frequently. Like map, for example, would be a hot path operator because you use map all the time. So you need to make sure that's highly optimized. Merge map is another one, or filter is another one, where something like, I don't know, or something with a delay, like the delay operator. That's the performance of the delay operator probably isn't super critical because you're already adding a delay. So there's certain ones where there's certain code paths where you want to try like whatever tiny little micro optimizations you can do. There's probably yields benefit in a library like RxJS, where other code paths that are little used or not often used, probably it's not going to be as beneficial to someone's application performance.
And to be clear, when you're talking about changing these operators and internal with patch releases, you're just talking about internal refactorings to make the code size smaller. It's not going to be any change to anybody consuming the library.
That's right. That's right.
But to be clear, there are some changes in V6 that we're not going to mention. It'll be in the change log, some breaking changes. They're more obscure things than a majority of people didn't even know. Like, I just made a note of one just to give an example that like debounce, there were some issues in V5 with synchronous reentrancy. Like if a value comes from debounce and then actually comes back in through itself, it would swallow that error. And that technically was a breaking change that we waited to make. To pull in. But there's a number of those type of things that probably don't impact you, but just FYI.
Removing result selectors was another one. That was one where there was all sorts of code in the code base that was responsible for kind of mapping values after you've already done something async, and we already have a map operator, so there was no sense in having kind of that duplicate code throughout the library. And it also expanded the API surface area quite a bit to have all these result selectors, so it made the type signatures smaller and the operator overload, possible operator overload smaller, and that sort of thing.
So with the pipe method and pipeable operators, is that like the recommended way to do things now? Or what about like dot chaining? How do we decide, and what's the story on that?
Yeah, using the pipeable operators is recommended. Dot chaining, it still exists through the compat package, and there's lots of discussion about what to do with it. I don't know that we'll ever want to completely get rid of it. There might always be some sort of support library, but because there's people that work in like the node world, and dot chaining is a little bit prettier to look at. The problem is dot chaining makes for code that's not very tree shakeable harder to make small for shipping and bundles and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really recommended that you comma chain.
Comma chain.
Use those lettable operators.
Lettables and comma chaining. Thank you, Tracy. So helpful.
Let's confuse everyone. Let's call it something else after April 1st.
So you guys mentioned like a docs initiative. Is it to make sure that, you know, everywhere is replaced with comma chaining instead of like dot chaining? Like, is that part of it?
You should do that. No, it's been actually really exciting because as Ben has been getting more integrated into the Angular team, the docs initiative has been much more. Well, so what happened was Pete Bacon-Darwin, he did this small proof of concept and tried to figure out if, you know, we could generate the docs just like the Angular docs are being generated. So, you know, great. It's not going to be Angular. You know, we're trying to separate the two since RxJS is in its own. But I think there's a lot of new exciting things happening for the docs. And I know Ben now is going to be able to spend a little more time onto that and being able to project manage that, which is, I think, going to be really good for the community in general. And I know, Jay, were you working on the doc stuff? Because I know you've been doing a lot of stuff to make sure things like Redux observable.
I worked on some of that early on, but I haven't in quite some time. The team, the docs team, has really taken that over and run with it.
Yeah.
They've done nothing I've done is being used now, so I don't want any credit for.
Yeah, which we're always still looking for contributors for the RxJS docs. It's so easy if you do Angular to just pull it down and be like, ew, front page sucks. You know, or just even to learn RxJS, it's a great way like to sift through some of the documentation. And, you know, I think we did a proof of concept as well to integrate stack blitz into the docs instead of using JSBin. So that's another thing. But I mean, things take so long. So.
Yeah.
Are the proof of concepts like branches, or are they like elsewhere that people can't check them out?
There's been like 3 proof of concepts for this Angular thing. So what was the first one, Ben? The first 2 were done by Pete. So I think one was one part of the RxJS official repo, or
no. So there was a proof of concept that the team did, and that was kind of first, and then Pete Bacon-Darwin, who did a lot of work on the engine that builds the Angular docs.
Jenny
did some work to take that same, Jenny or something like that. But he did some work to take that same engine and run it against RxJS's code base, because the docs are all inline comments, like doc comments. So run it against RxJS code base and show just as a proof of concept that, hey, we can use the same thing. And I think that what we're going to end up going with is something like that, where it's using that same Angular engine, but of course, you know, we have to go through and strip any sort of Angular branding and that sort of thing from it. And then we want to use things like Stack Blitz to show examples so people can do interactive things on the docs and that sort of thing. So
I'm also really excited, maybe not warrantedly excited. Is that a word? Warrantedly. But I am excited about some of the stuff that Jay's been working on the test scheduler stuff. I mean, it's so funny because, you know, being in the core team meetings, like I remember Jay and Ben one time, literally all they talked about for an hour was like, what type of syntax should we introduce? And it was just bike shedding on that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, we were talking before we started that I don't want to make promises on what exactly is going to be coming, but I can say I will promise that there are improvements that are going to happen to the test scheduler story. You know, there's fundamental ergonomic problems right now. You have to pass around the test scheduler, which is like a pain in the butt. No matter if you're using Angular with dependency injection or you using something totally different, it's a pain to have to pass that around. And there's other issues with like the frame size and the marble syntax. Like the marble stuff was designed originally like with the idea for testing RxJS itself, like the actual internal unit tests. And so all the ergonomics were really with that in mind. And so the fact that it started to get used outside of that was, kind of a secondary thing, and we've never really gone back and fixed the developer experience around that. So there's been a ton. Like, it's not obvious because a lot of this has not been happening in front of public view, which is my fault and something that I should have done differently. But there's a lot of stuff that's happened. A lot of debate, like she was saying. There's been a lot of debate between Ben, primarily between Ben and I and OJ, about the different syntaxes for the marble stuff, because there's some things that you can't represent within the current marble diagrams, especially things that happen in a lot of real world cases. And so, generally speaking, those are the things. Whatever we do, it's at this point, we're pretty confident. I think Ben would have to confirm it, but I think we're pretty confident that whatever we do, it won't be a breaking change to the existing test scheduler API. Because how the existing test scheduler API works is you have to instantiate a new version of it and then pass that scheduler around. But in the proposed thing that we're working on, you won't have to explicitly create a test scheduler, and you won't have to pass it around. And so it's a different, like, you do still have to basically tell the testing runtime that you want basically schedulers to use the virtual time, but it's a different user experience, and it'll be opt-in, and so we could release this at basically any time. It could be at 6.1 or 6.8, or it could be 7 or 8 or whatever. So it really doesn't matter when we release this, because we're going to keep the existing test scheduler as is for at least another version, I imagine.
I'm most excited about the marble syntax. Honestly, like
don't overcommit though. Don't overcommit. But yeah, we can.
Just like Ben started calling them lettable operators, and he's like, no, just kidding.
Yeah, there's some syntax changes that help with ergonomics and also just enable you to do more things that you literally were impossible. There's certain real world cases that we've run into where you literally cannot test the asynchronous behavior of something. That's just not possible.
Like a promise microtask, for example. That's like the most obvious one, and people use promises all the time, and there wasn't really a way to represent a microtask in the old marbles.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody's learning RxJS, would you recommend that they also learn about the marble stuff and marble testing as well? As they should be learning both of those together, or is there another way to do the testing that they could opt into or whatever?
I'm going to guess Ben and I disagree on this, but I think that marble testing is not something you should do when you're first learning. When you're very first learning, and just to make that very clear, just because learning about RxJS Ben and I have both just taught so many people, and Ben's done the workshops and stuff, and so I can only imagine that it's pretty tough for a lot of people. And so I think throwing in the marble diagrams are really great, but they're the testing stuff. Marble. I think it's beneficial to learn what a marble diagram is, not the ASCII syntax with the test scheduler, but the generic. And a lot of the intro to RxJS type of talks that you'll see, they give you that intro, and that's useful because when you're looking at the documentation and stuff like that, it's going to help you. But as far as the actual test scheduler stuff, I would wait until you have a basic grasp of what an observable and operators are. I think a lot of people hit the ground. My biggest advice to people who's starting. What's that? I'm
just moving rooms right now. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Let's just watch Ben awkwardly. Oh, don't Ben. Dang it. Wanted to watch us get a tour. But, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I think I know this is kind of unsolicited tangent advice, but my advice for people who are learning RxJS is to really focus fundamentally on what is an observable and what is an operator. And I know that sounds too broad, but I help people who have been using Rx for 6 months, maybe even a year, and they still haven't quite gotten to the point where they understand what an operator actually does. That it's subscribing to the thing you attach it to, and then it itself becomes the operator subscribes to that source, and then you later subscribe to the result of that operator. It creates another observable. So you just got a chain of subscriptions. And I think that learning that really just helps turn that light bulb on and demystify what RxJS is, and just open up a lot of powerful things. There's great, like there's if you're looking for like, how do I learn how to do that? Ben actually has one of the best articles that I've read on this on Medium. And I think it's like called like Learning Observable by Building Observable or something like that. I think that's by far the best advice I could give. The test scheduler stuff, once you understand that, then I think it's okay to go down the test scheduler route, because then you'll understand why this is what it is. But I don't know. Ben, what do you think?
I mean, I think we're in agreement. The most of the time, having something like the test, like the majority of the time, you don't really need marble tests. Like the majority of the time, you're testing, like 2 or 3 possible behavior routes that something could take in your app where you're using some observable. And in those cases, like testing it with like a subject or an observable of or something like that is usually just fine. What the marble diagrams really enable you to do is when you've got much more complicated possible interactions that are asynchronous, like kind of coordinating those in a visual way so you can see what's going on. There's not a high percentage of your code that's using observables that are going to require that. What would require that would be, if you were really, really coordinating multiple events, like for, I don't know, drag and drop or like some sort of like coordinated animation behavior or something like that. Or if you really wanted to thoroughly test a library that you were releasing that used a lot of Rx. But usually for like the end use in an app, like 80% of the time, you probably don't need marble diagrams, but they can be helpful to provide a lot of extra coverage. I definitely wouldn't, someone starting out, I definitely would not be like, yeah, you should go learn the test schedule. It's like, no, you should learn what map does. That's probably a good starting point. And then when you understand what the difference between merge map and concat map and switch map, then
And exhaust map.
And exhaust map, right? And race and et cetera.
No one ever mentions it, so I'm on a campaign to slip exhaust map into conversation.
Yes, more exhaust.
Well, I think another interesting thing about RX is just that, you can learn it. And we've had, other RxJS core team members or people who are, senior in RX, or at least we consider senior RxJS people, attend RX workshop just for fun. And because typically you're just using RX in a specific way within your application, there's always so much more to learn, right? Like it's like endless. And for me, when I try to talk about, beginning RxJS or just fundamental things, and I'm trying to, figure it out myself, I just remember the other day, there was a light bulb that popped up for me. I was playing around with some Angular code and I made a Grumpy Cat app. And this Grumpy Cat app, I was like, oh, let me just create a function. And then that function will say like, okay, if you feed Grumpy Cat pizza or cheeseburgers, he'll like it. But if not, then, then you get a point or something like that. And I was just like, oh my God, I could just use filter instead of this function. And then all of a sudden, so much more just like randomly made sense to me. But it's like these weird little light bulbs that go off as you like continuously play, like things that are so obvious and so duh, but and then I tried to refactor all my functions into RX operators, and Jay and Ben were like, no, you can't. You can't do that.
Don't you have this major nerd moment where like something's cool, but you just haven't really gotten your head wrapped around it, and then when you actually write the code and it works, then you just go, oh my gosh, this is so cool, and everybody else is like, yeah, we know that's cool, and you're like, no, I have to tell you, this is cool. I get so excited, and Samantha's like, Mom, you are a nerd, like, why are you so excited about this? Like, it's cool. I've had a few of those moments with RxJS.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we've actually seen you on, because you share so much on social media. Like, I think there have been a few moments where you're like, it works.
Oh my God.
I just want to know how you come up with Grumpy Cat app. Is your cat like angry all the time? Like, where does that come from?
Well, like, as much as I love Jay's face, so the first app, because I really like to like, I always ask Ben and Jay, like, what are the complicated things? Like, why do people care about RxJS? And, they're like, yeah, drag and drop, this, that, whatever. But then I got stuck on drag and drop. And then, Jay likes fruit snacks. I like fruit snacks, but I don't eat orange ones. So I save all my orange ones for Jay. So I made this like drag and drop app to feed Jay fruit snacks.
She's not kidding, by the way.
Yeah, it's on GitHub. It's on my
You
GitHub.
have to open
No,
source
I'm
that.
talking
Yeah,
about
we
the
need to
fruit
see that.
snacks.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Jay does love
this
fruit
is our
snacks.
real life. Yes, this is our real life. But then I was like, okay, look, this looks like crap. You know, Sarah Drasner has beautiful apps. So I was like, okay, let me find good, PNG. So Jay was replaced by fruit snacks and the fruit snack app to a Grumpy Cat app.
Oh, Jay, I think you're prettier than Grumpy Cat, if that makes you happy.
I can be
Did you
grumpy.
see that face when she said Jay's face, and then Jay's face went? That was awesome.
Yeah, I always make lots of faces. It's what I
I
do.
love that. I love the fact that you guys don't take yourselves too seriously. Y'all crack me up. And Tracy, you are a hoot. Like, I don't know where you get the creativity, but it's just, yeah, it's fun. You guys are fun.
Yeah.
So Austin, what you need to start eating gummies and fruit snacks and sharing them with other people, and then you're going to come up with some great app ideas.
That's how it works.
That's what I got out of it.
Appetizers. Yeah, well, actually, it was kind of funny because I would just throw away these orange fruit snacks. And then somebody online was like, hey, you could put them in a Ziploc bag for Jay. And I was like, oh my God, so smart. So anyways, last time I saw Jay, I brought him a bag of there were like 6 different types of fruit snacks in there, but it was only the orange ones because I just don't eat the orange ones. But actually,
I don't discriminate.
Yeah. Another really exciting thing though, actually, it's funny because I talk to Ben and Jay so much about things, and I'm always asking all these seemingly silly questions. And Ben, what did I get really excited about the other day? Oh, it was memory management and teardown. I was like, dude, why don't people talk about this? And he's like, well, because it's not sexy.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, our RxJS provides deterministic memory management because everything has a subscription, which gives you the same shaped thing, which all the teardown is guaranteed to be called if it errors or it completes or you unsubscribe, which gives you deterministic memory management. And it's not often talked about in talks because it's kind of like the difference between, talking about all the operators and what RxJS can do is like talking about toys, and talking about subscriptions is like talking about cleaning your room. So it's kind of one of those things where people don't often talk about, like, we need to make sure that we clean these things up. Like, it's if I talk about it at all, it's usually some very small part of
or Jay getting really excited about back pressure.
Oh,
You had a good blog post about unsubscribing, didn't you?
yeah, he did.
yeah. There's just talking about, I did a blog post about it, but again, like for a conference talk or something like that, I don't know if I would really focus on that.
I think the fact that Tracy got so excited about that just means she's been spending way too much time with you, and she's going deep into the nerd universe.
Yes. And then I'm like, what's an object literal? Just kidding. I know what an object literal is. But in the beginning, I did not a few years ago.
Well, I think a good point, Tracy and Bonnie, that you're making is that, you get excited about these things, right? And you're like, yeah, I want to do more. And I find myself, with RxJS and in the Angular space going, I want to do more with that, right? So I want to do things like, I want to bind a click event on an element, and I just want to get right to the observable and start doing stuff off of that rather than having a function or a method inside of my class to do that. And I find I want to use it more and more places. Is that something that people, start to do?
Well, the Angular team, we have some preliminary designs and plans to add more integration, like what you're talking about, like trying to get observables from events and templates and that sort of thing. No promises, of course, but that is yeah, that's pretty good. That's really good. But trying to get more support for the reactive side of things, because it seems to be something the Angular community has really embraced, and they like it a lot.
And it's the only, we were sort of going through Vue and React and different things and just look at reactive programming paradigms. And definitely Angular is probably the one that's really most heavily adopted this with RxJS, which is kind of cool as well, right?
Do you think that it's something that people learning Angular should also invest in learning RxJS? I mean, should they be coupled together like that, do you think? Or
I think they should at least invest in learning the basics of RxJS, like, you know, how to subscribe to an observable, what an observable is, the differences between it and a promise, because a lot of people are institutionalized by promises. What I mean by that is people always, when you have a promise, promises aren't lazy. So every time you get a promise, it's usually you're getting it from a function, because really people wanted it to be lazy. And so in order to make it lazy, you wrap it in a function. Observables are already lazy. So what ends up happening is you see these funny anti-patterns where people will be like, I have an observable and it's always the same observable, but I better wrap it in a function to get it. So really it's almost like having a function that returns a function at that point. And you could just take the observable and put it on a property and it would be more efficient. So, you know, getting people educated about what an observable is, why it's nothing like a promise, and you know, having them learn a few basics like how to map it, etc., is I think a good place for them to start. Now, do they need to go full NGRX? Probably not. Not off the get-go. I think that's a really interesting and powerful tool. You can implement a lot of those same patterns with plain Rx if you want. It's just that ngRx provides some nicer architecture around those things. So I wouldn't go dive straight into that deep end, but I do think it's probably important to at least understand how Angular's HTTP service works and what it returns, and you know, how you can use it even just imperatively to start with.
yeah,
And it's just so easy. It's like once you know how to use RxJS, it's like you can do all this stuff with such a tiny little bit of code. And we were doing maps and filters a long time ago, but it wasn't like so succinct and clean. It's beautiful.
So you talked about the entry level. So once you get the concept of an observable down, and then some simple intro operators like map and filter, what about intermediate? Where would you go after you got, say, the basics of, all right, I understand what an observable is, and then I understand what mapping and filtering are, but where do I go from there? I know it would be dependent upon your use, but a common path for people to take when learning.
My advice would be to jump into probably merge map would be the first one, because it's, I think, the easiest to understand, and then right after that, just into other flattening, smushing operators, right? Like the smoosh, getting into like and that sort of thing.
Is smoosh map a thing?
It needs to be a thing. Smoosh map.
Smoosh.
We need that. The community demands a smoosh map.
Wait, hold on. Really though? Why do I think smoosh is a thing right now?
Because there was a whole thing on Twitter about it last week, and Ben, I think Ben has a shirt. Actually, I saw it on Twitter, and it was not my imagining.
I knew I wasn't crazy.
This doesn't prove you're not crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, I feel like that was like a month ago, and now nobody cares. But yeah, Ben was actually really angry. I wanted him to make a song. Like, I was really into the, you know, Havana song. And Ben texted me 2 days ago that he said he would never dance on the internet again with me, but I disagree. So, but I wanted him to be like, oh, smoosh, ooh, na, na. You know, he's like, dude, I blocked somebody because of that smoosh thing. And then, like, 20 minutes later, yeah, he did. Like, dude, people are going to be so mad. But then 20 minutes later, he got a smoosh map shirt. What?
Yeah.
You're really sending mixed signals here, Ben.
I'm sorry.
Are we, or are we not allowed to laugh at the smoosh?
To be specific, I didn't block this particular person over just smoosh. It was because there was a few other toxic things this person was doing. So I rarely block people. Rarely.
So as long as we like keep a good sense of humor about it, we can do all the smooshing.
Right. All the smoosh.
Smoosh Ben's cheeks.
So wait. So here we go. I've got the. Are we sharing? Can you see that?
As long as you're talking. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so there we go. So as long as I'm talking, you can see that I've got the smooshes. This is one of the gentlemen that came to a workshop brought this. So
I noticed that it's using a dot operator.
Yeah, dot smush it. Yeah, I know, right? Well, I was for arrays, so.
And he did attend RX workshop, so you know he might know about the comma chaining now.
Right.
Ben, I can't help it. I just, yeah.
Hey, I want to shout out to a couple other operators that I really like that you guys didn't mention. The debounce time. I love the debounce time and the tap.
Gotta tap it.
I love that. I love that operator.
Can we talk about Ben and I actually this morning we're talking about some exciting stuff related to diversity, which I'm like, oh my god, this is my stuff, right? So can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Don't forget, guys, we have 13 minutes left before the top of the hour.
Yeah, so I'll go quick. So basically, actually, in June, we have an RX workshop scheduled that you can find at rxworkshop.com, but we're doing like this really large outreach to like all the Girl Develop It, Women Who Code meetups that we can find. I mean, about 100, so definitely not all of them. And giving away free diversity tickets. So we're really trying to do this and help promote within the industry. But then also, since Ben has joined the Angular core team now, and obviously there's like, well, anyways, what we've decided is, or he's decided actually, is he's going to donate all the profits from RX Workshop to charities. And we're like, oh my God, this is gonna be so cool because we can like actually support, Girl Develop It and Women Who Code and form some sort of relationships with them where, we don't exactly know what's going to happen yet, but I mean, it's going to be a really cool initiative in the next year and a half or so that we're going to be focusing on.
Right.
That's very cool.
I love it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you for doing that.
So if you guys wanted, you can just tweet us, by the way, like women. If you want to learn RxJS, you can just tweet us and we can send you all the links to like, the different giveaways and stuff like that we're doing and everything. So.
And is it women specifically or minorities too, or underrepresented groups?
Yeah, absolutely. On the minority side, I'm not aware of a lot of those charities off the top of my head, but that's totally the thing that I want to do with the money. And it's great because it still enables me to go around and do the workshops because I really, really have a lot of fun with the workshops. I like them a lot. So I wouldn't want to stop just because I'm on the Angular team. That would make me sad.
So plug that. If somebody was interested in an RxJS workshop with you, where do they go to find out more information?
It'll be at rxworkshop.com. We wouldn't have any of the information about what goes to charity or anything up there yet because it was just discussed this morning. It's a new development after I started on the Angular team this last week. So
no, I was just curious if people were interested in attending a workshop or taking a workshop or what have you. So
yeah, rxworkshop.com would be where they would go to sign up for those. And then I do some at conferences here and there as well. But rxworkshop.com is the primary.
Like ngConf, but I think the
ngConf.
Yeah, and that one's coming up very, very quickly. So
is it sold out? Is it too late?
My understanding is it is, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, but it's going to happen on Monday, I think, starting at 10 a.m. Bright and early. Cool.
Man, so many announcements. It's like, good thing we got this recorded, right? Everybody can kind of go back and play it slow.
We just need to I need to be better at coming on more often. Actually, I remember Justin, I was messaging you while I was at an RX workshop. I was like, oh crap, Chuck asked us to be on Adventures in Angular and this and that. Oh, by the way, well, I'll leave that for the picks, but I'll talk about contributor days.
I think it's time for picks.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, we get to pick. Is there anything else on the RxJS front that we want to cover? Any type of releases or anything else you want to talk about real quick before we wrap that up?
I don't think so.
We should let Tracy do the pick.
Okay, so sure.
Was that a squeal? I love that.
So Angular contributor days. We did one last year at ngConf. This time, because we want it to be more of an inclusive experience for the entire Angular community, it's going to happen online. You can find it at contributordays.com. Anybody can attend. It will be live streamed, but it'll be like Angular core team and then a few key people talking about, libraries and teaching and whatever. So it'll be like a 3 or 4 hour thing. It's a great opportunity to just, come and just ask the Angular team all the questions you like and just hear from some of the key community members. We obviously can't include everybody because it's hard to include everybody, but this is one of our initiatives. Just like, let's just get it online so everybody can come instead of it just being in a room and you have to be in Salt Lake City for it. So contributordays.com.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to have an episode on that as well, too, coming up. So
Yes, May.
Yeah, cool. All right, who else has picks? Mike, you got some picks?
I do. Just recently, right before the show started, by about half hour, an hour, TypeScript 2.8 was released. So some new exciting features. I know conditional types was the big one that was highlighted at the top of the blog post. We'll have a link to that, but they just tweeted out about that earlier today. Also, yesterday, beta 7 of the Angular CLI version 6 was released. So new beta out. Updated goodness, getting closer and closer to an RC and a release. So
nice.
Those are my picks.
All right, Alyssa?
So I have 2 picks that are kind of the same. Bonnie and I are on the diversity committee for ngConf, and so we're still taking donations. So you can go to ucaring.com/ng-conf, and that's where our fundraiser is right now. And then we also have a Google form, which I'll share and it'll be in the show notes, to apply if you would like help from the diversity fund to make it to ngConf this year. So yeah, that is my pick.
That's an awesome pick.
Mm-hmm. All kinds of good, helpful work going on. It's great. Bonnie, do you have anything?
Just real quick, yeah, I want to second Alyssa's pick because that was an amazing pick. But also, I wanted to mention Dominic Elm. I don't know if this is. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you guys this because I don't know if it's officially been released yet. But sorry, not sorry, Dominic, if you see this. I hope it's okay. Anyway, he just published, or he's about to publish, Angular drag to select. That looks pretty cool. Little open source library. So Dominic Elm, check that out. He's got some cool stuff going on. And Dominic, if I wasn't supposed to tell people about that yet, then sorry, it's too late.
So Dominic's going to be coming on for an episode here coming up as well too. So that'll be cool.
Is he talking about that?
I think he's going to talk about caching with RxJS. I think maybe. I'll have to look at the notes.
I love Dominic. He's awesome.
All right, Austin, do you have anything?
Yes, Silicon Valley. The next season just came out this week. Oh my gosh, love that show.
Internet.
New internet, yes.
Awesome. No spoilers.
If you're in the dev community and you have not watched that show, it is almost too close to home.
Oh, I don't know. I'm more of an Ash versus the Evil Dead sort of guy. Ridiculous.
I actually stopped watching it because I was like, this is making me a little bit nauseous. It was so accurate that it wasn't funny anymore. So I was just, I don't know. I've been in a company or companies like that where I was just like, oh God.
Oh man.
Kool-Aid. So I don't know. I guess, yeah. How do you watch it, Austin, and not get sick? I don't know. I laugh, but then I'm like laughing at myself. So it's weird.
It's kind of like one time I broke up with this guy and then we were still hanging out and then we watched the movie The Breakup when it came out and it was not a pleasant experience.
Oh my God, that's so awkward.
We were like so angry while watching the movie after we'd broken up.
Oh my God.
Learned some serious life lessons on this show. It's
At least we weren't arguing over tabs versus spaces.
That actually was a really good movie. I think you should ditch the guy and keep the movie. I like it.
I haven't watched the movie, but it's kind of like also watching The Notebook. Like maybe I've just had like really traumatizing experiences. Well, one time I watched The Notebook with a guy that I was like, he's never going to love me, and cried for 8 hours straight. And I was like, this is actually it was the same guy that we broke up and we watched the breakup. I'm getting married now. Jay's officiating the wedding. It'll be fine.
crazy. All right. Well, let's get to the important picks from our guests. Ben, do you have any picks?
I have a couple picks. One is there's a gentleman on Twitter, and I'm going to butcher his name. Cedric Solis. I'll be sure to give you a link to his profile. He publishes continuously, like a lot of really interesting visualizations of what's going on with RxJS. So if you're more of a visual learner, I think he provides some really interesting stuff. And then my other pick is there's a document that the Angular team and myself went through and put together about migrating from RxJS 5 to 6. It's an entire in-depth update guide of what's changed, what it means to go to the forward compatibility version, what it means to use RxJS 6 with the backward compatibility, etc., and various workarounds for things if you're using result selectors and that sort of thing. So really, really important document for people as they're migrating. Going to try to get that information out to more people. So
Awesome. And I forgot to tell Jay that we do this picks thing. So, but Jay, did you come up with something on the fly?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what a pick means, but you know, I don't know if I can share links. I don't know if that's a thing.
Just share runzas.
No, links. I'm saying, like, if I give a link, because I don't know how to link to a Twitter via verbal. You know, I don't want to say that the status ID is 9768550.
Just post the link in our messaging, and then we can make sure and attach it to the YouTube video.
Cool. So it's in there. So it's just literally a tweet to someone did like a virtual wearable prototype where like it detects where your hand and arm is, and then it can basically add 3-dimensional things on top of it. Like he had buttons where you can flick them and push them and stuff like that. Really, really slick. Has nothing to do with Angular or RxJS. And I mean, I guess you could write it in RxJS and Angular, but it'd probably crash. But
cool.
You'd probably crash.
That's true.
You'd crash.
That's probably true.
Oh no, we're at that point now. All right. Well, I think we got it. That was a lot of picks, so we'll call it a show, an episode. Thanks so much for joining us, Tracy, Jay, Ben. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you taking the time coming on. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, we'll see everyone next week. Later.
Bye.
Bye.